Hi, welcome. I'm glad you're here for what I like to think of as a small island of sanity and repose in a world that seems anything but sane and repose, that is. I know that I always find some comfort and escape when I can spend a few moments just breathing and concentrating on that simple, natural process. I also find great comfort and even escape when I can be outside. For me, that means walking and listening to music or a book or a presentation of some kind through my earpods, or nothing at all, but the sounds of being outdoors. There are many people who find hiking a real respite and energizing, or outdoor sports are also powerful in that way. This last week was quite wonderful for all of us who enjoy being outside or need to be outside. The temperature was amazingly mild for this time of the year. The sun shone many days in a row. There were some spectacular sunsets, and it was a delightful February thaw. With the images of relative warmth and a brightly shining sun in our minds, let us take our first break to breathe. Let's find our meditative positions and just settle in a little bit, but still with some attentiveness. I always like to do a little bit of inventory, but if that's not your thing, if just sitting down or standing or lying down, whatever position works for you, you can just do that. I think it's sometimes helpful just to release, and I think there are places in my body that wait for it. So starting at the tops of our heads, we'll just release our scalps from the hard work they do all the time and unfurrow our brows, possibly drop our jaws, even allow our tongues to just be calm at rest, not working or talking or eating or anything, just relaxed inside our mouths. I think a roll or two for our necks is always good. Reminds us of all the crinks back there. And that maybe we can if that's a word, uncrinkle. I'm not sure it is. It sounds right. And we just can roll our heads a bit and bring our shoulders up to our ears and drop them. And let go inside. Let go of the holdings, our digestive tracts, our tummies, our waists. Just let them be. Allow our hips to settle in, our legs to be at rest. We might circle our knees or wave them back and forth a little bit. Our lower legs, our ankles, we might lift from the ground and just wiggle a bit, twirl a bit. And then wiggle our toes, imagining that we are sinking them into the sand, the warm, dry sand. And then you may just want to just think about your breath going in and out at whatever pace feels right to you. If you want to start with a conscious big breath, which is how I generally do it, filling up our bodies. Again, it's a It's a mindful way of paying attention to the breath going in, staying in, going out again. And even as the breath comes in, I can imagine the warmth of the sun that is being promised also this week, this first week of March. Let us stay with that breath. Feel the warmth of it going into our bodies, filling our insides with literally life, and then leaving again, staying with it, following its the sensations, our bodies contracting a bit, the breath going out, the rest at the bottom of a full breath. And then the inhale again. Normal, just a normal inhale or an exaggerated one. Whatever works for you. At whatever pace works for you. Part of what you might notice is that the rhythm of your breathing may change from the first conscious intake to midway through to the preparation for concluding. I had the opportunity to be in Minneapolis this last week with my daughter, son-in-law, and my 3 grandchildren. While I am something of a news junkie when I'm at home in Cleveland, my daughter and her husband, like most millennials, it seems, get all of their news from the internet. While I also access certain news sources online, without a newspaper or television, I find that I am fairly unaware of the news when I stay with them. And interestingly, to me at least, I don't miss it. It may be that since I know it is just for a few days, I don't think much about it. But there is something to be said for taking a break from the constant barrage of the news. While inexpensive daily newspapers have been circulating since the 1830s, I recently learned that the 24/7 news cycle that we are now accustomed to began with the O.J. Simpson trial of 1994-95. The vast news resources available since that time have increased competition for audience and advertiser attention, which in turn has incentivized media providers to be as compelling, some would say, as sensational as possible. We have all seen this and observed it. In addition, the news reaches us through multiple mediums: television, radio, print, the internet, mobile apps. I know that I often feel as if I am being bombarded, physically oppressed, and badgered by the news. In order to feed the insatiable media machine, a very large percentage of what is presented as news, it seems to me, is speculation. Excuse me. Thus, something is reported, and then there is a series of experts, other commentators, and interested parties of all kinds who are brought in and asked questions to continue the discussion. What do you think the outcome will be? What do you think the reaction to the outcome will be? How do you think this portion of the population, that demographic, that gender, et cetera, will react? I frequently find myself saying to myself, Sarah, turn it off. They're just speculating. I did not have to do that in Minneapolis because it didn't get turned on in the first place. What I have been realizing in the aftermath of returning is that there are many ways to take a break, to breathe, and taking that opportunity is always a healthy thing to do. I think there is something else. I think that many of us live in a state of constant exhaustion. We ask a friend, colleague, family member, how are you? The answer is often tired. Well, I know that we live in a country of insomniacs. When individuals say they are tired, I don't think they're necessarily bemoaning their lack of sleep. Sometimes, yes, but not always, or not solely. I think they are often reflecting a state of emotional, psychological, and even spiritual exhaustion. We live in a complex and difficult world. And that world, as William Wordsworth would say, is too much with us. Thus, because it is almost impossible to escape from it, I believe that part of our fatigue is a reaction to the incessant drumbeat of potential impending disaster. For me, that drumbeat keeps telling me that there is nothing I can do as a sole individual to change the course of events. That makes me feel powerless and ineffectual, which is not a good place to be. And that tells me that I need to leave that space and find a place where I can exert my own agency, where I can feel whole, where I can feel that I am a competent and intelligent individual living in a world that makes some rational sense. The wisdom of taking a meditative break to breathe is that we need to take breaks, many kinds of breaks in the course of our days, in the course of our years, from the problems of our world, from the divisions in our country, from the pressures at work, from social media, and the intense personal expectations it creates, from the tensions in relationships, even loving, positive relationships, from the challenges of difficult relationships, from our own self-imposed standards and expectations, from our worries and anxieties of every kind. For me, the change of place to Minneapolis, the change of responsibilities to babysitting, especially for my 2-year-old granddaughter, to being without my regular sources of news and, in fact, without television at all for 5 days. That was a restorative break. It wasn't restful, but it was restorative. I used many different kinds of physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and psychic energy while I was there. I was happy to come home, but I was grateful for the break and, of course, the opportunity to be with my children and grandchildren. In our culture, aside from what we give lip service to as a coffee break, which is frequently observed in front of a computer screen, I believe that we tend to think of breaks in terms of the weekends or major vacations. In fact, if we look for opportunities, we can take restorative breaks many times in the course of a day, and we can find restorative experiences in many of the things we do routinely. When we are standing in line at the grocery store, instead of losing patience with how slowly the line is moving, we can concentrate on our breathing and have a meditative moment right there. The same is true of almost any situation in which we have to wait. we can turn that boring, sometimes frustrating, and often irritating experience into something altogether different and helpful. In actuality, the idea of a break is very ancient and very Jewish, as it was introduced into the world as, you have it, the Jewish Sabbath. 1/7 of our time is designated as a break for the soul and the spirit. Unfortunately for us all, the Sabbath is observed more in the breach than in its practice. I suspect that most Jews associate what they cannot do with the Sabbath, not with what the Sabbath can do for each of us. And we'll talk about that more in a future meditation. Wise tradition that it is, Judaism has been telling us for millennia, take a break to breathe, even. Let us return with that ancient wisdom as inspiration to our breathing practice. Finding our places again, just settling in afresh, or reminding ourselves. Perhaps closing the eyes, or just allowing them to softly gaze on anything, but allowing us to think about our breathing. And if you wanted a mantra of some kind, as the breath goes in and the breath goes out, you might think something to the effect of, this is healthy, or this is good, or just good, healthy, vitalizing, energizing, restorative, or just breathe, or nothing at all. Sometimes it's helpful to have a word or a phrase. We've talked in the past of something like, I am grateful. I am alive. I am here. Breathing in this moment. A break to make me whole. Or some praise that has always meant something to you. One step at a time. One foot in front of the other. Now, here, present. Well, I hope that you will continue to breathe on your own for as long as it is comfortable for you. I would leave you with these inspirational quotations to remind you during the days ahead that in popular parlance, as it were, you deserve a break today. From Helen Edwards. In this game, everyone needs a break to refuel, recharge, and jump back in full throttle. From Anne Lamott. Almost everything will work again if you unplug it for a few minutes, including you. From Oprah Winfrey. Breathe, let go, and remind yourself that this very moment is the only one you know you have for sure. This sounds to me like it comes from a woman who does meditation. Breathe, let go, and remind yourself that this very moment is the only one you know you have for sure. From Harper Reed. The opportunity to step away from everything and take a break is something that shouldn't be squandered. Sometimes it's important to work for that pot of gold, but other times it's essential to take time off and to make sure that your most important decision in the day simply consists of choosing which color to slide down on the rainbow. And that's from Douglas Hagels. And as benediction to this meditative reflection and for the coming days, each person deserves a day away. I'm sorry, this is from Maya Angelou. Each person deserves a day away in which no problems are confronted, no solutions searched for. Each of us needs to withdraw from the cares which will not withdraw from us. May you each have at least moments in which no problems are confronted, no solutions searched for in this coming week. I look forward to seeing you next time. God bless.